Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. This week's Torah portion talks about the priestly garments. And yesterday I spoke about the importance and the significance of clothing. That the Kohen Gadol and the ordinary Kohen had a special wardrobe. And if he didn't wear that special wardrobe as he performed the service would be invalid. Which shows us the importance of wearing dignified clothing. But in Judaism has many hands. As they say, on the one hand, on the other hand, Well, on the one hand, garments are very important and significant. But on the other hand, garments are insignificant. Because if we say don't judge a book by its cover, surely you shouldn't judge a person by his clothing. And here's something fascinating. The word in Hebrew for clothing is beged. Now, the word beged, if you change the vowels, also means boged, a traitor. What's the connection? And the connection is obvious. That clothing sometimes betray, like a traitor, betray the true character of a person. You could completely misjudge who a person is if you're only looking at their external facade, which is their superficial clothing. A matter of fact, the word beged is the second, third, and fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Bet, Gimel, Dalet. What is missing? The Aleph. What does the Aleph represent? One, God, the Jewish soul, and the soul of every human being. And therefore the clothing conceals sometimes the true essence of the person. So don't judge them by their clothing, by their beged. Look at their Aleph, their godly soul, which is one with God and with every other person. When you go back to the story of Jacob and Esau in Genesis, when Isaac wants to bless Esau, and Rebekah tells Jacob, put on the clothing of your brother Esau and go into your father and get the blessing. And one of the Hasidic interpretations, which is very profound, says, why did Rebekah do that? And the answer is there are Jewish children who openly appear and dress like Jacob's. But then there are those who dress like Esau. Their Jewish identity is not present upon them. They act completely disconnected from their Jewish heritage. But beneath that garment is their Jewish soul, and never forget that. So Rebekah wanted the blessing of her husband Isaac to be passed on not to future generations of Jews who openly dress and look and identify as Jacob with the Jewish people, but even those who dress like Esau and outwardly they don't appear Jewish or connected to their Judaism. Beneath the clothing is their Jewish soul, and therefore they should too receive the blessing as well. And therefore she wanted Jacob to receive the blessing wearing the outer garments of Esau. And this is something we saw in Israel with every visit. That there were Jews who on October 7th, which was Shabbat and Simchat Torah, instead of going to the synagogue to dance with the Torah, they went to a Nova music festival to dance at a music festival. And there were many kibbutzniks who were very outwardly secular. But what did we learn in every meeting? That in captivity they said Shema Yisrael, and they made blessings on food, and they made Kiddush, and they had a Passover Seder, and they fasted on not just Yom Kippur, but they told us on Tisha B'Av, and even on Tzom Gedalia. You say, wow, what righteous holy Jews. In captivity, where they're barely eating, they fast on all the holidays. It should teach us once and for all to never judge any person, and surely not a fellow Jew by that outer appearance, because that is a complete betrayal of who they are. We should see the olive, the oneness, the godliness in every Jew. There's a rabbi in Miami, his name is Rabbi Shalom Berlipska. He has the Shul of Bell Harbor on the corner of 95th and Collins, which has now expanded down the block, practically reaching 96th Street. And I heard a story directly from him. When he started his synagogue in a storefront on Harding Avenue in the late 80s, he would struggle often to get a minyan in the morning. And so, sometimes, unfortunately, what did he have to do? What every good rabbi has to do, stand on the corner and look for someone to make a minyan. And one morning there was no minyan, and he was getting later, so he went outside with his talit and tefillin and stood on the corner in Bell Harbor looking for Jews. And suddenly he sees a guy, older guy, walking down the street. He looked disheveled. He looked like some random dude. And he says, let me ask him. He says, excuse me, sir, you're Jewish? He says, yeah. He says, could you help me? I need a minyan. We need a 10th man to say the Kaddish. And the fellow says, I'm sorry, I'm going to eat breakfast. And he walks off, and he heads to the diner on the corner to have breakfast. Rabbi Lipska stands out there another 5, 10, 15 minutes. Now he's really getting desperate. He's going to lose the minyan. He says, you know what, let me go find that guy again in the diner. Maybe I can convince him. He walks in with his talis and tefillin on. He goes over to the guy. He's sitting at a table already. And he says, do me a favor, please. I need you 15 minutes. Come say, help us with the prayers. The fellow says, well, it's too late. I already ordered my breakfast. As he says that, the waitress comes and puts down his breakfast. Bacon and ham, eggs and ham. Rabbi Lipska says, you know what, I'll pay for the breakfast. You come make a minyan. He puts out a $10 bill on the table. Rabbi Lipska says the only time in his life he paid for bacon and eggs. The fellow said, okay, fine, but I'm not going to pray. He says, you don't have to pray, just stand there, answer Amen. Takes him back to the shul. And sure enough, he stands there and he finishes the prayer. He thanks him and he leaves. The next day in the morning service, this fellow walks back into the synagogue. Rabbi Lipska sees him. He says, wow, welcome, good to see you again. He says, yeah, I was very moved yesterday. I want to join you again. And he started coming every morning. And then he started opening a prayer book. And he started putting on his tefillin. And he became a regular at Rabbi Lipska's synagogue. One day, Rabbi Lipska says, he comes over to me and says, Rabbi, I want to help you start building a synagogue, not just be in a storefront. If you can please meet me today at my lawyer's office. Rabbi Lipska looked and thought to himself, lawyer's office? You have a lawyer? The man looked like he didn't have anything to his name. He looked like a pauper. But he said, meet him at his lawyer's office. He said, sure, I'll go. Sure enough, he comes to the lawyer's office, and the lawyer hands him a check for $1 million back in the late 1980s. He says, Rabbi, I want you to use this as the first donation towards building a synagogue. Today, Rabbi Lipska has a big, beautiful synagogue with hundreds of people coming every day to daily services. But it started with a Jew that on the outer external level, you may have thought he's not a Jew even, let alone a Jew who's going to build a synagogue, but never be betrayed by the outer appearance of any person. Surely a Jew recognize that they have a godly soul that is the aleph beneath the surface. Have a wonderful day.